Asmongold has recently spoken about 3 things that he thinks will fix World of Warcraft, and I think that these 3 things very much relate to Ashes of Creation. One of the things I think Ashes is completely right on, and the other maybe not so much. So let's jump in. So the 3 things were these. For number 1, he says,
and then remake every class with like 10 spells or less.
For number 2, he starts talking about the size of the raids. He pretty much just wants one 40-man difficulty.
Number 3, remove all add-ons with no exceptions.
And I believe 2 out of 3 are very relevant to Ashes of Creation, and one of them they're getting wrong, and one of them I think it's getting right. However, keep in mind that this is an opinion. It's very likely that you might disagree with me, and let me know in the comments. In a nice way, please. So let's talk about the first one. The reason I think Asmongold is talking about this when it comes to World of Warcraft is because of the potential success of Plunderstorm, a new 60-person battle royale from, well, I was going to say from the developers of World of Warcraft. It is in World of Warcraft, it's just sort of like a separate mode. It's a battle royale, you know, you get dropped in, you kill players, you loot, and then the winner is remaining. You know, you've seen it before. And in fact, if you've been playing Ashes of Creation for long enough, you've definitely seen it before, because Ashes of Creation, I'm not going to say they were the first ones to do that, but they also tried it. But in that game mode, there's only a handful of abilities. It's not completely overwhelming. In World of Warcraft, and I can't really speak for retail, I can only sort of speak for Classic all the way up till Wrath when I was playing it, there are a lot more abilities. In fact, you have several bars, all of which have around about 10 abilities on them. And there are just so many damn abilities that I personally did not like it. Some abilities are ones that you don't do in combat, and actually I think those are okay. You can have them on a separate bar, you don't really need them all of the time. You can even go into your spellbook and get it that way if you really need to. But for me, World of Warcraft was an example, and a lot of MMOs do this, of a game that just has too many abilities, and it's sort of confusing, which is point number 1, but it's also awkward, right? I have an MMO mouse, but even that's not really good enough when you've got like 30 abilities. You sort of have 10 bound to your mouse, or, you know, 1 to 10, and then you press shift to get the other abilities, and then maybe you press control to get the other abilities. And honestly, it's ugly, it's a faff. I don't like it. And this is relevant because Ashes of Creation is currently thought to have, and I'm just going to sort of read from the wiki here, it says the maximum number of skills that you can have on your action bar will be around 15 to 20. However, each archetype will have roughly 35 to 40 skills to choose from on average. Now, I actually don't mind that idea. I don't mind the idea of having more skills than you can actually use on your bars. I'm okay with that because it sort of means you have to pick and choose which ones you want, and you pick the important ones. That's good, that's a choice, I like that. But I would say even 20 abilities, if I'm honest, it's just too many. One thing to note is that tab target MMOs generally rely on combos and using abilities at the right time in the right place. And the less abilities you have, it's very possible that you get less skill expression. And I understand that. I think there can be a compromise. Personally, I would say 10 is around about the right number. But yeah, that's one thing that I wish that Ashes of Creation would probably change. I know that a lot of hardcore classic MMO enjoyers probably don't agree with that. And the one that I'm not going to talk too much about because I don't really know how relevant it is to Ashes of Creation is the raiding one. He's probably right, but I don't want to speak about it because I don't play retail WoW, and I think most of the raids in Ashes of Creation are going to be sort of like open world anyway, so probably not all that relevant. Let's talk about the one that is, and that is the banning of add-ons. Now, thankfully, I agree with Asmongold here. I think add-ons typically ruin the experience. Now, I know a lot of people don't agree with that. I think like Josh Strive Hayes doesn't agree with that. I think he likes the idea that add-ons let you customize it to you and what you enjoy. I think he said that in like the Lord of the Rings video, but you know, don't quote me on that. I'm just remembering that from some random memory in my head. But the thing that I don't really like about add-ons is twofold. One, it takes away from the designer's intent. If you allow add-ons, you're not really experiencing what was the intended play style, what was the intended visuals, what was the intended, you know, XYZ, and instead you're not making your own, but people are making a version for you. That's not the developers. Now, in some instances, that stuff is just way better. You know, ESO has a lot of good mods WoW has a lot of useful mods for sure, but I think it ends up being a little bit lazy in a way. Instead of challenging the designers to actually make a good, usable, customizable UI, you just say, we'll let the add-on creators do it. For me, it's weak sauce. I don't really like that as an argument. And then secondly, I think add-ons, some specific add-ons like damage meters, ruin the gameplay experience even if you don't think it does. Like an add-on that just changes the way that your inventory is laid out, probably not that harmful. But add-ons like deadly boss mobs, is that the name? DBM, I think it is. And add-ons that are basically like DPS checkers, DPS meters, I think they sort of end up ruining the experience. So for World of Warcraft specifically, like DBM is effectively required now for a lot of raid mechanics, I believe. There's so much going on in a raid with all of the mechanics and stuff like that, that if you don't have the add-on, it becomes very hard to figure out what the hell is going on. And the game is now sort of designed with the idea that the players would have that information. Whereas in our universe where we don't have that add-on, that wouldn't be the case. The designers would have to do a good enough job to, give you the signals when you needed to act, and maybe what you needed to do. So that's one reason I would be against add-ons. Another one is the classic DPS meter. Now, a lot of the time, a lot of my chat on Twitch and everywhere I see are very much in favor of DPS meters. And to some extent, there can be a lot of fun to be had there. In World of Warcraft Season of Discovery, there's a lot of people who are enjoying, can I be the top parser? Can I do the most damage? That's actually a good way of knowing if you're improving as well. Like, the more damage you do, the more you go up this list of like this pecking order as who's doing the most damage, the more rewarding you feel. And that's not untrue. That all makes sense. And then a lot of people will say that not having damage meters is actually a good thing for casual players. You're less likely to get gatekept because there's less information to gatekeep with. And to some extent, I think that's true, but it's not even the main reason that I don't like it. I don't like it because it effectively gamifies a game in a way where people then tend to optimize the fun out of things. Yes, some people like optimizing, true, but what happens if you do a damage meter is everybody has to optimize, and not everybody wants to do that. And then games have to deal with people who want to do that versus people who don't want to do that. And just sort of getting in the right place with the right group of people who sort of agree with you ends up being quite difficult. And honestly, DPS meters in my experience have been toxic. When I did used to play World of Warcraft, if you were like near the bottom of the DPS, you were definitely on the chopping block if you made a mistake, rather than if you were at the top. Some people start taking a game a little bit too seriously. For me, a game is primarily about having fun. And I know that a lot of people get their fun in different ways, but there's only so many niching down you can do in a game before that niche that plays that game is so small that the game dies. Ashes of Creation is already going to be a niche game, but on this one, I think they've actually made the right decision. I think Ashes of Creation is going to have like a decent set of leaderboards anyway, so there should be some competition sort of already inbuilt into the game. And when it comes to the UI, it's going to have a highly customizable UI anyway, so I don't know if we need that kind of add-on either. So for me, Asmongold is right. I can't really say he's right about World of Warcraft because I don't know, but I agree with the two main points that we spoke about in this video. Too many abilities, I think, is confusing, and I don't really think it offers that much. There's a little bit of extra skill expression, but that's maybe about it. I'm not sure the extra skill expression warrants the extra complexity, but that's just my opinion. And when it comes to no add-ons, yeah, I think no add-ons tend to lead to players following the actual game's philosophy a little bit more. And that means that there can be more focus from the devs on that philosophy because they know people can't change it. So they have to get it right. This might be a little bit of a controversial subject. Do let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. If you're looking for people to play with either in Alpha 2 or beyond, then make sure you sign up to my Discord. There's a link in the description. For now, big shout out to my Patreons. I do really appreciate you guys. And if you want to come and talk to me about this or anything, then Twitch is your best place. I'm currently streaming 6 days a week. I'm streaming New World. Don't judge me. I know most of you won't like that game. That's fine. We can still talk about other things. Honestly, I'm like an Asmon Bronze. It's just chatting with buttons. For now, have a most beautiful, beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.